already, so yeah. Part 2 of my tier list of Krunker Map Makers. And yeah, there is a part 1 where I covered the first 40 map makers on my YouTube, so check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I'll have a card show up here and a link in the description. Now before I finish my tier list once and for all, I'd like to bring up something. If you've noticed, I've left the S plus tier blank this whole time, and that is on purpose. I don't want to jump straight to calling anyone my favorite map maker until I give everyone a chance. So I'm going to wait until I have all 77 map makers in here, then I'm going to rearrange some of them, and then I'll put my absolute favorite map makers in S plus tier at the end. And also, a obligatory reminder that this is my tier list, and my tier list is my opinion. And if you don't like it, then I have a link to the tier list template itself. That way you can do your own research and make your own tier list. Alright, we're cool? Okay then, let's do this. And what better way to start this than to rank the one and only Javi B-Hop, a newish map maker who started making it big in 2020 thanks to maps like Flood Escape. I'm going to be real, in my personal opinion, a lot of his maps seem awfully much like they were made solely for plays. I mean, he's made a trade map, he updated the shit out of Flood Escape, he made like 3 versions of Tower of God, each with their own emojis, and he also made a Clash Royale ripoff, cause that map is popular, I guess. Let's be real, there's nothing wrong with chasing the bag, and Javi's maps are pretty sick at the end of the day, but they aren't my cup of tea. So A tier. Now Black Thunder is a escape map maker, which you may think is D tier material, but actually I'm going to put him in A tier because some of his zombie maps are honestly really well designed. Next is the Zuma guy who made BR Biomes and that Walmart map. Both of them are pretty cool, and although BR Biomes is a levels map, it has some cool aesthetics, so he goes in B. So Triv 2002. He made Clash Royale, which in my opinion is a classic example of an overrated map. Although it is quite nice for testing out various different weapon configs. He also made Val Royale, which was a thing back then, I guess. But honestly, I don't really like his maps, so I'm putting him in D. Next is W with those vertical bar things. He's a member of the Phil clan, and he's made a few maps like CTF Arena and TNT Run, which are pretty cool, I guess. He also made a map for someone called Red Burrito Live. I don't really know who that is because I don't really like Twitch, but the map looks really cool, so I'm putting W in B. Now to me, Duke V is more of a mod maker than a map maker. He is working on a new map supposedly, but as of now, he really only has one map. But that one map is a little known map called CS 1.6 Dust 2, which is easily one of the coolest maps I've seen. Yeah, I mean it's technically taken from another game, but just the fact that he managed to make something like this in Krunker, like in-game, is the proof of concept for how map makers can take advantage of mods and custom assets to really make anything they want, assuming they have the tools at hand to make those assets. Unfortunately, as this is currently Duke V's only map and it isn't really original, I am putting him in A tier for now. But if he makes just one more map like this, he's going in S for sure. With FFA Parkour, his DEF CON map was pretty lit, and many of his other maps are pretty cool too. He hasn't been around that much lately, but he still has some cool maps from the past, so that's a B. Mama's Boy made Minecraftville and Olympus. S. Don't really know anything else he's made because I can't visit his profile because Krunker and its stupid illegal characters bullshit, but from what I can find, he is definitely S tier. Now with Graphite Editor, his map page is garbage. I mean, having Zombie Be Up Corn as your most popular map is rather depressing, to be honest. But the thing with Graphite is that he is, or was at this point, a part of Arbiter. And for those who don't know, cause I didn't know until a few days before recording this, Arbiter is a group of top tier map makers who work together on official rotation maps for Krunker. And I have seen some of Graphite's modeling work, and all I can say is, holy shit, I'm putting him in S tier. Seriously, there's more to map makers than just their map pages. Next we have Octodoodle, who has made some neat maps like Helm's Deep and Project Nyx, but where his real rep comes from is the fact that he literally founded MMOK. Yeah, that guy. He also has a YouTube channel where he makes some honestly really good tutorials on Krunker Editor tips and tricks. Like, they don't just waste your time on the basics at all, they actually take those basics and help apply them to more advanced things in Editor. Quite honestly, his map page is B tier, maybe A tier at best, but his founder status bumps him up to S. Next is Pistol, with the U, you know, Pistol, Jewel. Pop Harbor is honestly my favorite prop map in Krunker, and Skull Island used to be one of my favorite Battle Royale maps until the terrain f***ing happened. Easy A. Now I'm kinda shocked that I've never heard of this guy before, Eclipse. He's only made 2 maps, but they both are honestly some of the most insane maps I've seen. I mean, one look at Cryo and he goes into the S tier. Hang on. Cryo, oh god damn it. I honestly wish this guy made more maps, because Cryo is how you make a good Infect map. Bunker Guy makes a whole bunch of custom games with triggers, and while they may not be particularly fancy, his maps are truly unique. He made Battleship, Krunk Games, Krunk Tycoon, all of which make splendid use of triggers. This lands him in the A tier. Next we have Syringe, Drug Paraphernalia, Karen Repellent. Mr. Needle was one of the first map makers I remember who really pushed the limits of what you could do with Krunker mods. Take a look at Portal Downfall or ZFE, then realize both were originally created in early 2019, along with older maps like Afterfall and Playtopia. God, the nostalgia. I really have no reason not to put them in S. Next up is Solar 13, and to be honest, judging from Solar's map page alone, well, y'all know Parkour Plus isn't my favorite map even though it's still really great. Then there's Rainer Plus, Halfar Plus, and Atlantis Plus. All these have that very unique Solar 13 style that set Solar apart from many of the other map makers. But take away the Solar team and you just get pretty good maps that aren't quite amazing. And as such, his map page alone is not enough to warrant an S tier. But what is enough to warrant an S tier is the work he's done for other map makers. Not to mention that Solar is just an amazing fella, easily one of the most wholesome map makers I know. AKC God damn it, I misspelled this one too. I don't want to waste too much time on another one of my mistakes, so I'll just say good maps. His ball jump parkour map and his jump pad parkour map, as opportunistic as they may have been, are quite fun. B tier. Next is WPY WopyGG. I don't know how to pronounce his name, and neither do I really like his maps. They're all low effort maps and all the typical game modes you'd expect. Diffuse, zombie, trade, moving on. Tierlist is a parkour map maker who has made maps like Dungeon Mystery and my personal favorite Beob Lightning, the latter of which by the way looks absolutely lit. His maps are all really solid and very good looking with lots of unique ideas, and as such he's going in A. Next up is Fudabave. Honestly, his maps are kind of forgettable. Alright, I don't mean to be harsh, but I don't really care for them, and neither are they really all that bad, so C tier. Next up is this fucking dipshit right here. You all know where he goes. Now I know a lot of people are gonna be all like, come on bro, you're not trash, stop bringing yourself down. Alright, look, it's classic humility 101. Roast yourself before others roast you. Now on to someone who actually fully deserves to be in the F tier. Rocket Emperor. Which, okay, I'll hand it to him. Imperial Hangar is actually really cool, even if it reminds me of a movie franchise I would rather not think about. So you may be wondering, well, why is Rocket Emperor an F? Well, he is proven to be an absolute fucking douchebag. Alright, I'm not being around the bush here. He is a legit troll. One example, take one look at the guy's social hub page, and yeah. He also had a few other posts that have been removed that were, well, I'm not gonna show you because they're that fucked up, and they are something you should not be joking about at all, anywhere, for any reason. Alright, I'll leave it at that. Alright. I mean, Rocket Emperor has been locked after all sorts of community outrage, but he's still technically verified for some reason. Like, what the fuck? I know it's up to the developers who gets verified or not, but still, like, you really want this guy representing you guys? Like, come on. Moving on, Mr. Gunner remade the castle for Mario 64 in Krunker. The map does have some annoying parts preventing it from being fully amazing, but nonetheless, it's the castle from Mario 64. And unlike the one from Slide, you can actually explore the interior. That alone runs an A tier for me. Next up is 0.0. Like it forms a sort of surprised mouthless pace or something, whatever. This guy's better known as 7FI. His map page is honestly kind of disappointing, with his most popular map being a trade map with a kanji background. He has some other maps like Overgrown Mall, which is nice, all very easily B tier material. But the fact that he made a rather decent Krunker Editor tutorial series back in 2019 and is continuing to make editor tutorials to this day bumps him up to A. Now, quite honestly, a lot of Endless Mike's older maps are just, yeah, he was initially one of those D tier map makers that made nothing but shitty zombie maps. Then, much like Sif, he got out of that phase and became one of the most respected map makers in Krunker. Maps like Jetpack Joyride prove his ability to mix map making with mod making. And his Portal Puzzles map proves to be one of my favorite Valve-themed maps in Krunker, and as a result, I'm going to put him in S, as he really is up there with his map making skills. Now Andrew made the Aim Room, the most popular Krunker map of all time. That alone puts him in the A tier. Unfortunately, aside from other AIM maps, he hasn't really made much else other than that, but nonetheless, Aim Room, I mean, come on. Next is CXMonkey14, who has had his moments with like Surf Krunker Soon, which managed to beat out my Icy Half-Height map in a map making competition. But other than that, his maps are just kind of underwhelming. I mean, they're still good, like Prop Office is alright, so I guess he goes in a B tier. Next we have Iniquity Games. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain. You go straight to S, you and your kick-ass fucking interior design skills. Next is fucking Face, whatever that is. He's better known as Adonis. And he's made a bunch of B-op/parkour maps that honestly take on some of the most unique themes and structures I've seen from most other map makers. My personal favorite of his is B-Hop Shrinked, which is where you're basically a tiny boy in a garden in a house, and there are these wavy curtains, and it's very fun and very creative. I'm putting Adonis in an A tier. Next is CHHED. He made a map called Waterfall Infect, which is one of my favorite zombie maps of all time. I am usually biased against zombie maps because a lot of them are honestly very low effort and they're just spam hosted to no end. But for every 6 different versions of zombie defense caution emoji, there's a Waterfall Infect. Unfortunately, this is the only map he has ever really made, aside from that rather cool looking but non-functional demonic map he made, so I can only put him in A. Next is the Starr, who is going in the B tier. His maps, in my opinion, can be summed up as nothing short of trippy. They're rather huge, they are full of arguably too many colors, and while they do sometimes come off as a bit pretentious, they have a sort of personality to them that I haven't really seen in other maps. Next up we have You know what would be nice if you could use like regular ass characters so I can shoot you up in the Krunker Hub? Starr has made 2 maps, both of them are only levels maps, so they aren't my cup of tea, but well, they look absolutely phenomenal. The visual effects and colors in these maps are crafted and tuned very finely, and the aesthetics alone land Starr in the A tier for me. TMK is a lesser known map maker, and the map I personally remember the most from him is a map called PK Matsuri. It was a very detailed and cool looking map for the time, but structure and gameplay wise was just kind of underwhelming. He clearly does know his way around editors, so I'm putting him in B. Next is Sometime Crazy, who made maps like Campaign Mode and the Sydney Parable, the latter of which is one of the most interesting and criminally underrated maps I've ever played. It's so depressing to see this mapmaker not getting the credit he deserves, so I'm putting him in A tier. Next up is Das's Walter, and this is the case for all the guys who make the official rotation maps. He gets an automatic S tier. Next is Knox. He has some rotation style maps like Wild West and most recently Favelas. He also made some alternate versions of actual rotation maps like Daytime Kanji or Summer Sub-Zero. His maps are pretty nice, I'll give him B tier. And S is going in B tier along with him. Now yeah, I will admit he made a bunch of zombie maps, but they're actually not that bad. Besides, he's made other maps that are actually pretty good. And last but not least is none other than Sydney. And by extension Vince, and the entirety of Yandis Entertainment. And considering that Sydney literally made Krunker, he goes in S+. Right, you may consider some of these map makers gods, but nah man, Sydney is literally God. Like, he is the god of Krunker. And as such, it is customary to put him at the very top. Now that I added the rest of the map makers to this list, I'm going to go through the tier list I have here and rearrange some of the fellas from part 1 because my opinions have changed quite a bit and I will admit I took some insight into other people's suggestions. The first change I'm going to make is with Dr. Thee. Alright, sorry Doc, but I'm going to have to shift you down to A. I said in one part 1 video that Dr. Thee's Night Sky Hop was one of my favorite B-Art maps of all time, but then I replayed it and then I realized that it's still amazing, but it wasn't nearly as amazing as I thought. And in comparison to the other people in this, including some of the ones I put in part 2, Dr. Thee just doesn't really hold up anymore. He went from being a definite S for me to sort of straddling the line between S and A, and with the other additions I unfortunately had no choice but to bump him down to A. In his place, I'm putting Firefly Live up in S. He has made a huge impact on the game and he really does belong in S tier, hindsight being 2020. Next person I'm changing is Creationfire, whom I put in B simply because I consider his maps quote-unquote kinda boring. But now he made his evacuation map for rotation competition, and I have to say, a few grabs aside, I really do see this being an official rotation map, even if it doesn't win. And as such, I'm bumping Creation up to A. The fourth guy I'm changing is Grizzler, and you know what? I'm gonna be real, I have no idea what I was thinking when I put him in C. Like, seriously, what the f was I thinking? His Vault Guy's map is proof alone that he belongs in at least B. That along with his other maps being actually really kinda decent, hindsight being 2020. Next is Matt Starr. And you know, I know this is gonna be controversial, but I'm actually going to put Matt Starr in D. I know, real improvement right there, but in all honesty, his maps aren't really that bad. Right, I admit it, I had some fun with zombie defense a few times. Nevertheless, D is the highest I'm willing to put him because I can't really get over the fact that his maps were pretty much the reason why so many crappy zombie and trade maps have taken over Krunker. And last is, well, me. I'm sure you guys could tell, but the F tier placement was a joke. Now, I'm actually in kind of a weird position. If I rank myself low, I come up as not confident of my own work. But if I rank myself high, then, well, I would come off as some kind of egotistical douchebag. I honestly do not know where I stand when compared to others, and I really don't want to make bold claims comparing myself to others. So for the longest time, I've kind of been at a loss over where I wanted to place myself. Then I realized that I didn't have to place myself at all, so that's what I decided. I'm not going to place myself on my tier list. I know some of you will probably be disappointed that I didn't divulge how I felt I compared to everyone else, but I just don't want to, because it's too risky for me, and besides I made the template for the community to fight over, not to kiss my own ass, so I'm removing my name from the list. Sorry. Okay, now that I made those adjustments, I'm now finally going to pick a few people in the S tier whom will join Sydney in the S plus. Actually, no, I'm going to. Hang on. Alright, so I made a new tier specifically for Sydney so that he remains on his own league above everyone else. Now at long last, I can finally choose who I consider to be the best map makers in Krunker. The first person I'm putting in S plus tier is Marmalade Man. Again, he made a Waluigi pinball map. He also made tons of other very faithful recreation of other Mario Kart maps, complete with music. All of which are a huge blast to play, especially considering I'm a Mario Kart fan. Next up in S plus is Graphite Editor. Because again, I've seen his work for Arbiter, his modeling skills are absolutely fantastic. Okay, just take my word for it, he's the most underappreciated map maker I've ever seen. Right, I'm willing to look over zombie popcorn on this one. Another guy who's going in S plus is Needle Guy. He is the pioneer in using models and mods in his maps, and he was really one of the first to push the limits of Krunker map making. Not to mention he made a bunch of nostalgic maps and all, so yeah. Another no-brainer S plus tier map maker is Iniquity Games. His maps are some of the best looking maps I've seen in Krunker in terms of attention to detail, color usage, layout, functionality, pretty much everything down to his thumbnails and even his own goddamn logo. Absolutely fantastic. Finally, the last person I'm putting in S plus is none other than the one and only Krusty Crisp. And it's pretty much solely for his Sandstorm map. Sandstorm was created for the first official rotation map contest back in December of 2018. And it won first place, hence its inclusion with the other two rotation maps at the time, Berg and Little Town. This single map and its inclusion in the rotation lineup is probably the most important moment in Krunker map making history. As one, it is still one of the better rotation maps to this day, even if industry is giving it a run for its money. And two, it's a user-made map that the developers implemented into the game. And three, it was proof that Krunker map making was no longer just a fun little time waster, but that map making was a real thing now. It was a legitimate hobby and something that people could take seriously. I don't think MMOK or Krunker in general would be where it is without Crispy Crust and his Sandstorm map. Now, I'm going to be real and say that I initially wanted to leave the S plus tier blank, because I really don't like picking favorites. If I call it a flaw, I don't care, but I honestly don't think there's any one map maker that is better than everyone else. And to pick a favorite, or even a few out of all of them, would sort of invalidate all the other map makers on the list and write them off as irrelevant. When in reality, each map maker on the list has their own style of map making, their own preferences, and their own little corner of Krunker. From zombie maps to parkour maps to rotation maps to trigger T deathmatch based maps to, well, many different kinds of maps. Each and every map maker has their own unique style and approach to map making, and even the map makers in C and D tier have their moments. But above all else, these map makers have one thing in common. They're all a huge part of what makes Krunker so replayable. They are literally the ones setting the playfield of Krunker, and unfortunately a lot of these map makers don't really get the appreciation they deserve. We have to understand that all these maps, even the maps that wind up being subpar and or even overrated or shit in our eyes, those maps are still someone else's babies. A lot of these maps still have a lot of heart and effort put into them, whether it's someone excitedly slapping together their first map, or it's an experienced veteran making their 26th map. And at the very least, you don't have to enjoy or even play every single map, but you should still show respect for the map makers who make them.